Okay, good morning everyone, and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Thursday morning as we are starting together Perashat Lecha. Perashat Lecha, my friends, begins with Avraham and one of the tests that God told him to leave his family and his country and everything that he knew and loved and go to an unknown land. Okay, not an easy test. And he goes, and we know that his nephew Lot comes with him. Lot was a true student of Avraham. Lot, we know, he was a good guy. You know, you read the text, you see his commitment, his hospitality. He follows Avraham. He's a true disciple. And yet the pasuk says, "Vadonai amar el Avram, achareh pared Lot me'imo." Comes the pasuk. We are over here in chapter 13, pasuk 14. And the pasuk says that God only appears to Avraham and promises him the land of Israel. And again, originally, God promised him when he leaves, he's going to get to the promised land. And Avraham leaves. But God never communicates with him again. God doesn't come and tell him which land, and he doesn't come to confirm. But the pasuk now here, it's only in chapter 13, pasuk 14, that the pasuk confirms God himself. And the pasuk, let's read it together. Vadonai amar el Avram, and God says to Abraham, Aharei hipared Lot me'imo, after Lot separated from him. God says, Sana enecha ur'eh min hamakom asher ata sham. Lift your eyes and look out, north, south, east, west. Ki et kol haaretz asher ata ro'eh, all this land that you see. Lecha tenena uzarachad olam. To your kids I will give you forever and ever. V'samti et zaracha ka'afar haaretz. And not only did he promise him land, but he blesses him, of course, with children. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth. No one will be able to count them. So therefore, get up, Abraham, and walk through the land, its length and its breadth. And this is the pasuk that I want to focus on today. Hashem comes to Abraham, and he doesn't just promise him land and children, but the pasuk is very clear. He's very specific, the pasuk. It's God came to him only after Lot left. Only after Lot left. Now you may have read Rashi on this pasuk, but I want to read to you the source of Rashi, and really you'll see today something very interesting, that it's not such a simple matter what Rashi brings. And you realize how much homework Rashi has done, and what Rashi did when he brings an opinion. Rashi is not only giving you an opinion, he's telling you his opinion, because there are many opinions, and by quoting that opinion, so it's in Rashi's opinion and that opinion is correct. Okay? So, take a look at this midrash together. This is again on the pasuk, Midrash Rabbah, pasuk 13, chapter 13, pasuk 14. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, first opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says that God only comes to Avraham after Lot leaves. Says Rabbi Yehuda something very interesting. Ka'as haya le'avinu Avraham b'sha'a sheperash Lot ben Ahiv me'imo. There was anger with Abraham from God when Lot departed. Unbelievable. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the pasuk is telling you that God was angry with Avraham for sending away Lot. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and here's why. God says to Abraham, Lakol hu medabek. He's able to cling to everyone else. He has room in his home for every single person. Hachnasat orhim, for 3 random Arabs. Ulot ahiv eno medabek. But to his own kinsman, his nephew, he doesn't cling. He sends away Lot. And says Rabbi Yehuda, God was angry with Avraham. Oh my gosh, this is wild. You can only find this in the Midrash, my friends. But this is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, that actually sending away Lot was a mistake on Avraham's part. He should not have done that. You are the outreach master, Avraham. You bring everyone in. This is what you do for a living. You're not going to do outreach with your own nephew? You're going to send him away? That's Rabbi Yehuda, which Rashi does not bring, if you're familiar. Rashi brings the next opinion. Rabbi Nehemiah Omer, Rabbi Nehemiah says, opposite. God was angry with Abraham from bringing Lot with him in the first place. He shouldn't have even taken him. Why? God says, I told Abraham that your children will have this land. And yet he cleaves to his nephew so that he could inherit him. What is Abraham thinking? That I'm not going to give him children because he's old, so he needs to take his nephew because at least it's family. Abraham doesn't believe I'm going to give him kids. Let him just bring any two people from the marketplace if he wants to give him his possessions. Just like he wants to give it to his nephew. It's true, nephew is maybe a blood relative, but he's not offspring. And so opposite, says Rabbi Nehemiah, God is angry with Abraham for bringing Lot with him in the first place. And so God tells him, get rid of Lot. And so he brings in a fight that causes Abraham and Lot to separate. So here we have over here, just literally opposite opinions, okay, if you could ever have them. One opinion says it was a sin to kick Lot away, and one of them says it was a mitzvah to kick him away. It was a sin that he even kept him with him in the first place. Now, I want to open this midrash up, and I want to share with you how the Meshech Chochmah explains, or Meir Simcha of Dvinsk, okay, which is not a city in Halab, okay, Dvinsk, if you can tell from his name, he's Ashkenaz, but either way, we are still allowed to quote Ashkenazi opinions over here. Says the Meshech Chochmah. Take a look. And he says something very powerful. Okay? He says that if you want to understand these two opinions, first of all, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nehemiah, it all comes down to understanding the word ahare. Again, the pasuk says, Vadonai amar et Lavram, ahare hipared lot me'imo. After. What does the word after mean? And to quote a very famous tzaddik, Mr. Miyagi, is it after or is it after? Okay? What is ahare? So says the Meshech Chochmah, we have to go to the famous midrash that's going to be brought in a few pages from now. So I flip forward and I read the following midrash. Again, this is midrash 44:5. 44:5. Rabbi Yudan and Rabbi Huna, take a look. They dispute the following. Very interesting. Says Rabbi Yudan and Rabbi Yudan and Huna in the name of Rabbi Yossi. Bechol makom shne'emar ahare, in Hebrew there's two words for after. There's ahare and there's ahar. Ahare and ahar. And I'm sure you could probably think of psukim that have both. Vahi ahar hadvarim ha'ele. Sometimes it says Vahi ahare hadvarim ha'ele. And there is a difference between ahar and ahare. And I want to read to you the midrash. Over here is the source. Rabbi Yudan says, B'chol makom shneimar ahare, anytime you see the word ahare with a yud, he says samuch. It means right after. Ahar muflag. It means long after. Okay? So the difference between ahar and ahare is how close in proximity. Okay? Was it immediately after or was it a long time after? And it's good to know these. When you read a pasuk, Rabbi Yudan is telling us, if it ever says ahar, it means a long time after. And if it's ahare, it means right after. Rabbi Huna Amar, Bechol makom shneimar ahar samuch, and ahare muflag. Rabbi Huna says the opposite. Ahar is right away. Ahare is a long time after. Okay? Now, by the way, just linguistically, ahar makes sense. What does a yud do? What does a yud do to a word? If if you add a yud? Anyone know in Hebrew? Yud usually makes it plural. Okay? You add a yud to a word, it makes it plural. Okay? So the kiseh, kiseh, yeah? Make many chairs. One chair and many chairs. So ahar is singular, after. Aharei, many afters. Okay? Plural. That makes sense. That's Rabbi, and that's the second opinion. And the other opinion says no, the opposite. Now, I want to, again, just to give you a little bit of depth, because I know if you're joining this class, it's because you like to go deep. The Gur Aryeh Maharal explains that Rav Huna and Rav Yudan do not disagree regarding the definition of the words, but their connotation. So take a look at what he explains. Ahar, he says, means after. The antonym of ahar is kodim, before. Okay? And that's how you would talk when you're ordering two objects or events. Right? Event A was after event B. Ahar. But what does ahare mean? The word ahor means the back. Right? Ahore, right? Ahor. The ahor vakedem tzartani. You created me back and front. So back, right? How do you say that? What's the opposite of ahor? Lifnei, from the word panim. So there's ahor and kedim, right? Before and after. Kodim. And then there's also ahore and lifnim, right? Lifanai, in front of me. So here we go now into the two opinions. Rav Huna says as follows. When the Torah says that event B was ahar after event A, it has to mean that it was immediately after event A. Otherwise, it was not after the event. For example, when we say that Shimon was after Reuven, it means he was right after him. He was following directly after him. But when it says that event B was aharei with a yud event A, it's not necessarily talking about directly in back of it. For example, when someone says that Reuven was in front or in back of Shimon, right? I said I was in back of him. What does it mean I was in back of him? It doesn't mean that he was right in back of him. The reason for this connotation is because when it comes to space, when a second item is attached to the back of a central item, it is merely an appendage to a second item, but it is not part of the second itself. So too the second act that is in back of the first is related to the first one, but remains distinct. So Rav Huna's rationale is that when it says aharei, it means that something happened and it is distinctive from the first one. They're separate. They're unrelated. But not that there was necessarily a time lapse. So ahar, which denotes that the two events are related, right? The two events are related. Ahare doesn't mean that. So when the pasuk uses the word ahar to point out that it was Abraham's miraculous victory over the four kings that caused him to fear that he had received a reward for his good deeds in this world, God appeared to him to allay those fears. Okay? That is Rav Huna's opinion. Rav Yudan says the opposite. Rav Yudan says like this. The back piece of an item is always directly attached to its front. Right? Makes sense. Right? The back of a coin is attached to the front of the coin. So although it's not part of the item itself, it is merely an appendage to a central body, it is always directly attached to it. Okay? Hence, when the Torah says that event B was aharei, it was in back of event A, the two events must have been attached. They were related and occurring in close order. But when the Torah says that it was ahar, there is no connotation that two events are directly linked together, and therefore the term can be used to indicate the second chronologically follows the first, but with a significant lapse of time between them. Okay, either way, that's a little bit of depth from the Maharal. If it interests you, ahar and aharei. But coming back to our pasuk for a second. So God says to Abraham, Aharei hipared Lot me'imo. After Lot separated. What does that mean, aharei? Was it right away? Or was it long after? So it says over here, the Meshech Chochmah says beautiful. Rabbi Yehuda holds aharei was a long time after his nephew was sent. He holds like the other opinion. Aharei, a long time. And therefore, why would God wait a long time to speak to Avraham? So the Midrash is saying because Rabbi Yehuda holds aharei means a long time after, and God was angry for sending Lot away. He should not have done that. And so it was a punishment. So God waited a long time. And only after the, I guess you could call it the anger, if we're using human terms, it was only after God's anger was put to rest did he now come and speak to Avraham. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that it was a mistake for Avraham to send Lot away. And therefore the word aharei means a long time after. Rabbi Nehemiah, on the other hand, says, no, aharei means right away. And the second Avraham kicks away Lot, right away aharei, God comes to Avraham. Because he holds that it was actually a good thing to kick out Lot from the house. In any case, again, it seems that we have two very, very different views between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nehemiah. But the truth is, it's possible to say that they're both correct. And what does that mean that they're both correct? On the one hand, Lot is a complicated person. We know that on the one hand, he was a student of Avraham. We know that when the angels came to Sodom, he brought them into his house. That's not a small accomplishment. That's a big deal. You think about living in Sodom, sin city, anti-chesed city. They don't bring people over, right? You don't give people lifts. Everyone just drove a 2-door car, no room for people in the back seat, right? That was this type of city that Sodom was. And Lot lives in that city. And yet, he's still a student of Avraham. He opens his door to guests. Like we said before, he follows Avraham all the way to Israel, to the promised land. When they went down to Egypt, he didn't tell the king that really Avraham and Sarah were married, which was dangerous. He was holding information that could have gotten him in trouble. So we find that Lot was definitely devoted to chesed and some of the ways of Avraham. He was definitely a worthwhile student. He was teachable. He was formable. However, it is at the end of the day, Lot got a little bit of lust, a little bit of greed. He looks up and he sees Sodom, and he looks tempting, and he sees the money and the lush and the lifestyle, the waterfalls and everything, right? The opportunity for money, and Lot, he leaves, and he chooses Sodom because of his desire and his thirst for money. And maybe even Lot wouldn't even agree to that, by the way. If you would ask Lot, why are you going there? He may not say that. Because sometimes our real cravings, we don't like to admit to them. We have to cover them. We have to justify them. We clothe them with alternate justifications. A guy may really be going somewhere for money, but he doesn't want to admit that. So he'll say something like, well, no, there's more opportunity. It's really the money. We lie to ourselves. Lot will say, maybe I went there because it's opportunity to bring people into monotheism. Not necessarily always do we see. We're blind, right? Our temptations. Say a story of the one of the Hasidic Rebbeim. I don't know if it was Rav Shmelk of Nikolsburg, but either way, maybe it was the Alter, Slabatka, I don't remember who. But one time, he went to St. Petersburg for a surgery. And his student said, Rabbi, why'd you go to St. Petersburg? They have hospitals all over. And you know what he said? He thought, and then he smiled and he said, I went to St. Petersburg because of the umbrellas. What in the world did he mean by that? He explained when he was a kid studying in yeshiva in St. Petersburg, he remembers that they always had over there the newest technology, the newest umbrella. And so now when he was deciding where to do the surgery, he's admitting that a part of his decision making was tainted by wanting to maybe see a little bit of the technology over there in St. Petersburg. He didn't only go there because it's the best hospital. And so sometimes we make choices in life and we like to think that we're purely motivated, but sometimes we're slightly tainted in our decision making. But either way, Lot leaves. Lot goes to Sodom. It's very appealing. His eyes get big. And it caused him to make the worst mistake ever, to forsake Abraham and his God. And look at all the trouble he goes into after that. It's over. He gets sucked in. So on the one hand, it was a mistake for Lot to be with Abraham. And God wanted Abraham to kick out Lot, because Lot would have been a bad influence of Abraham. And that's one opinion. And that's the rabbi that says that Rabbi Nehemiah, he should have kicked him out right away. And when he kicked him out, God was very happy with Abraham for kicking him out. It comes Rabbi Yehuda and says, it's true, but it's also not true. Because at the end of the day, yes, it presented a harm to Abraham's spirituality. But that's Abraham's fault. If Abraham was on a high level, if he would have built himself into being a perfect human being, if he would have perfected his character, he would have reached a level where he would have been unaffected by being associated with Lot. And so a little bit, it's true he had to kick him out because right now Abraham was going to get influence from Lot. But that actually means that there's a flaw in Abraham's resume. From the fact that he would have been influenced, means that you didn't properly work on yourself, Abraham. It means that you didn't really build yourself to being the type of person that would be able to inspire without getting inspired. That you would be able to pull without getting pulled. And if Abraham would have reached the level that he could have, maybe, he would have been able to keep Lot without having to suffer the consequences. And so God was angry with Abraham for sending away Lot, because the truth is you have to send him away. But the tragedy is that Abraham wasn't yet on a level that he was able to keep Lot. And so both are true. And the question is, which one is being highlighted? And Rabbi Yehuda and Nehemiah are just arguing on that one point. Rabbi Nehemiah says, no, he kicked him away and it was a good thing because he's a bad influence. And Rabbi Yehuda says, yeah, it's true, he was a bad influence, but Abraham could have maybe built himself to becoming a type of person that wouldn't get influenced. And so two things can be true at once. And only God knows how to really weigh these things. These are complicated things to weigh out. We and you cannot do them. But God knows how. God somehow can. But the point for us is that we got to remember that it was Lot's choice to leave Abraham, but Abraham put him an ultimatum. He said, you go left, I go right. You pick. And it's not a way maybe for Abraham to talk, He could have said, hey, Lot, listen, your shepherds, they're stealing. Talk to them a little bit about theft and the importance of emunah and being happy with what you have. Abraham could have told Lot a little pep talk. But Abraham cut the ties. He separated. And that's a shame that Abraham felt that he needed to separate, that he wasn't worthy of keeping Lot close. And the truth is, that's every one of us, our jobs. We're all doing outreach. And the pasuk right in the beginning, God says to Abraham, "Veheye beracha." Make sure you're a beracha. What does a beracha mean? Make sure you're inspiration. And the midrash right in the beginning of our parasha says, "Karibe berecha." Read it, pool. Brecha is a pool. Ma brecha zo mitaheret tameim. Just like a pool purifies the contaminated. Afat mekarev rehokim. So too you will remove the you will bring those that are far removed back to Hashem. you will purify people around you. You got to be like a pool. What does it mean to be like a pool? It means that you have to have the characteristics of a pool. A pool purifies, but it does not become defiled itself. Sometimes when we try to help people, we go down a little bit to their level. And it's important that we go down to their level, but without becoming their level. We got to go down and pull them up without it affecting us. Yeah? Sometimes you try to do outreach on friends, and as you're pulling, they're also pulling. And it could taint us. God says, Veheye bracha, you got to be like a pool. You got to make sure that you're influencing those that are far without getting impressed by them, without them influencing you. And that's something it takes time to do. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avot, Aseh lecha rav. You got to make for yourself a rav. Ukneh lecha haver. You got to get yourself a friend. The difference between a rav and a friend is two-directional. A rav is one-directional. A rav is giving. A rav should never take. If you're a parent, it's your job to influence your kids and teach your kids and inspire your kids. If you're a teacher, you got to remember you're the rav. You should never allow your kids to tell you what to do. We shouldn't allow them to change how we think. We should not try to be like them. It's a mistake if a parent tries to learn from their kid. They see their kid doing wrong things. Parent knows what's right. When the parent starts saying it's okay, I want to be accepted, I want to look cool, you're the teacher. You know the way. It's your job to educate them. Of course, again, we try to keep the relationship open always. But we have to remember that we have to be the one to be the Rav. We're the one doing the pulling. We shouldn't allow them to pull us. Sometimes a person's not ready. Sometimes a guy goes to yeshiva for a year and a half and he thinks he's a Chamuvaji Yosef. And he goes out and changes the world, and the guy's forget half cooked. The guy didn't even get So you put a guy like that out in the world who learned for a day and a half, and then a year later the guy's back where he started. So we got to make sure that we're always staying strong, not to get influenced by the people that we're trying to inspire. And in a way, there's a small critique on Avraham. Not that we are here to judge him, but we're here to learn from their mistakes. And so Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is, it's a shame that Avraham wasn't yet fully baked or cooked, as we say. That he didn't fully build himself. He could have, he should have. And if he would have, then he would have been able to help those that are around him. Sometimes, persons, they leave the walls of the yeshiva prematurely because they want to change the world. Imagine a doctor leaves med school after 4 years instead of staying for 2 more. If you stayed for 2 more, you would have been able to help much more. And this is always the delicate question of people that are in teaching Torah. They have to make these decisions, hard decisions to make. Is it the right time to leave? Should I stay a little bit longer? But at least for us to remember that we are here to inspire whoever the lot in our lives are. But we also got to make sure that we're only inspiring and spitting one way, and we're never swallowing the other way. We sometimes allow them to rub off. If you're a doctor and you're going to heal somebody, so first things first, you got to make sure you're protected and you're not getting infected. You got to protect yourself. And so we got to go down, we got to help them, but we got to make sure that we don't stay stuck. We don't drop. And there is a balance, a science to it. At the same time, we know that the Kohen, when he's purifying the tameh, he himself becomes a little bit tameh. Not to the same degree, but a little bit tameh. Right? Because when you, at the end of the day, ultimately, when you help people grow, it somehow will rub off on you a little bit. You are going to maybe not be able to grow as much as you could have in scholarship or whatever lane or avenue. And so again, I guess it's finding the right balance of making sure that we're helping, but we're not getting pulled the other way. That is the ahare. That is the ahare. God only comes to Avraham ahare. What does that mean, ahare? Was it right after, or was it a long time after? Now Rashi only brings the one opinion. Rashi brings the second opinion, that he spoke to him right away after, because God was pleased with Avraham in sending away Lot. But when you open the Midrash, you realize that there's other opinions as well, and they're all saying something true. Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. It's true that he was pleased by kicking him away because he was going to rub off on Avraham. But it's also a tragedy that he was going to rub off on Avraham. And we gotta do what we can to try to make sure that we are bulletproof, and then we go out and we save the world. Okay, let's stop over here, my friends. Have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.